Hi, everybody, and welcome back to my channel, Vedic Living. Today, we are going to talk about a very interesting person who's been in the news. His name is Johnny Depp, and he is, for those of you who don't know, he is a very popular American actor. He is acted in a lot of movies. In fact, he at one point he was one of the most highest paid actor in the film industry. And I'm making this video because a lot of you requested for it. I've been getting emails from you asking me to make this video because, as you know, he has been in the news lately. He has been having this court case with his ex-wife, Amber Heard. And because of that, many of you have requested me to look at his chart and look at his life and what is coming up for him. So I thought, okay, let's go ahead and make this video. Now, before I go on, remember to go to my website and sign up for my free newsletter. I do send out a free newsletter at the end of every month with everything that's coming up in the next month. I detail all the transits and all the predictions. And also, I want to let you know if you want to book a reading with me, you can again use the link that's below this video and click on it and go to my website and book a reading. So now coming back to the chart of Johnny Depp, I have it pulled up here. It is, he was born on the 9th of June, 1963, 8:44 a.m., Owensboro, Kentucky, in the United States. I am looking at the chart right here in front of me on the screen, and you can see the chart up here while we are looking at it. Now, one of the main important things whenever you look at any chart is the ascendant. The ascendant is, when you look at the zodiac, the entire zodiac belt around the planet. As you know, because of the Earth's rotation, the zodiac belt is also constantly moving. So the ascendant is the zodiac sign that was rising on the eastern horizon at the time of your birth. In India, it's called the Lagna. Now, in Johnny Depp's chart, you can see that the ascendant is the sign Cancer. Now, because his ascendant is the sign Cancer, the ruler of this ascendant becomes the most powerful planet in the chart. And who rules Cancer? The moon. So this tells us a lot about this person right away, because being a Cancer ascendant and the fact that moon is the chart ruler, he is a very emotional and sensitive person. That's the first thing that we know right off the bat. Then you look where the moon is going. If you see, the moon in this chart is in the sixth house and it sits with Ketu. Moon Ketu in the sixth house. What is the sixth house? The main, one of the main indications of the sixth house is legal battles and law. So he has been in a lot of legal battles in his life. This is not the first time he has been in a court case. He has had bankruptcy in the past. He's had problems with, I think, tax related issues. He's always been in legal battles. And that is a big trend in this chart. Because when your chart ruler goes to a certain place and indicates certain things, it becomes karma for this lifetime, for the soul to learn that area. So that's why he's having all these legal battles. Now, the moon is sitting with Ketu. What does that signify? That signifies problems with the mother, right? Because the moon is the indicator of the mother and Ketu is with it. So he probably felt like his mother needed help or his mother was suffering in some way or other. And he felt for her. Whenever the moon comes with Ketu, that's what happens. Now, another thing also is because the moon is with Ketu, it shows a lack of nurturing for the person, for the individual. So he probably grew up with feeling like he was not nurtured or feeling like he didn't feel loved. Let's just say that, right? Now, what else is the sixth house? The sixth house is appetite. It's food. Now, when the first house ruler is in the sixth house, the native usually shows a lot of interest in areas that have to do with food. Now, I'm not sure if he's had any businesses in restaurants and such, he may have, but it does tell me that he's probably a foodie, right? He likes food, um, and or he's a he's a patron of different kinds of cuisines and that kind of stuff. But yes, definitely there is an interest in food. And like I said, legal problems, it's appetite. He probably has some digestive issues because that's the sixth house. So those are the things to look out for. Now, what is really interesting is that this moon is in the nakshatra. I'm looking at it right here. It's in the nakshatra Purvashada. That is very interesting because this nakshatra is called, the nakshatra of truth. People who have this nakshatra are usually searching for truth. You may not know this because I've not reached this far in my nakshatra series. But when I get to Purvashada, I'll talk very much in detail about it. But let me just tell you, Purvashada is to do with looking for truth, searching for truth. All they want to do is speak their truth. So, with that being said, it tells me that Johnny Depp is probably always in a state where he's having to justify himself. And, especially when you have the nakshatra in Purvashada, they are trying to justify themselves. They are trying to say the truth. And, and I haven't come to the second house yet, so let's not jump to any conclusions here. But, but typically, Purvashada means, searching for truth or looking for truth or speaking their truth. Okay. Now, coming to the second house, very interesting. He has Uranus, Mars, and Pluto in the second house. Very interesting. Why? Because the second house, point number one, stands for money, financial wealth, and assets. Okay, material assets. He has a lot of all of these. Okay, now Mars, Uranus, and Pluto in the second house also causes problems in early childhood life because second house is your early childhood. Okay, he probably had a lot of difficulty in that time frame in his life. And I do know his parents divorced when he was very young. There were a lot of arguments between his parents and all of that. So that makes sense, having a lot of issues in his early childhood. Now, another thing is when you look from the moon, remember, always look at a chart from the Chandra Lagna. When you look from the moon, this combination of planets, Mars, Uranus, and Pluto, go to the ninth house. What is the ninth house? It's the father. So that tells me, he might have had a lot of issues with his father. His father would have been a very unpredictable individual, Uranus, probably had anger problems, Mars with, rage and anger and, just violence. That's Mars. Pluto means he was probably very manipulative and controlling. So Johnny Depp has had issues with his father. Just looking at the chart from the moon, you can see that right off the bat. Okay. Now, another also one more interesting thing is that the ruler of the second house is the sun, and it goes into the 11th house of great gains. What does this mean? This is actually a Dhana Yoga, which means that this individual will make a lot of money in his lifetime. And trust me, he has. He's a multimillionaire. He's made lots of money acting in a lot of movies. And, everything about what he did was kind of unexpected. He never intended to be an actor, he wanted to be a musician. Second house has Uranus. Very unexpected. The way he made his money was from very unexpected areas. He did not really plan to do that way, but it just came to him. And that's what Uranus does, right? Unexpected wealth. And the fact that the ruler of the second house is in the 11th house of great gains, look at which planets are sitting with that sun. Mercury, Venus, and Sun all in the 11th house. What does that mean? The 11th house is your friends and your connections, your society, people around you that you're connected to. This is a very powerful house for Johnny Depp, which means he probably had very good friends. People around him just felt like they wanted to help him, they wanted to support him. And you can see that today in the legal battles, people coming forward to talk about him and support him in what he's going through. And also, I've read that, he came into the movie industry or acting through a friend, Nicolas Cage. So, this also is another big indicator because the second house of money, the ruler of the second house, is in the 11th house, which tells us that the money that this individual is making is coming through his connections, through his friends, through the people that he knows, right? So, that is a very big indicator right there. Venus rules the 11th house and it's in the 11th house, another big dhana yoga or indicator of wealth in the chart. This person will be very successful. He has made a lot of money. Okay, this 11th house is very, very good. And also, he has Mercury there. So, Mercury, Venus, and Sun all in the 11th house. Now, I've also noticed when Venus, especially in a man's chart, Venus is the indicator of the spouse. When Venus comes in the 11th house, I've noticed that they sometimes have money dealings with the spouse, or it could mean that they work with the spouse, or they've met the spouse at work, or they have a joint business together, or something like that. There's something to do with money and the spouse, and that's the Venus in the 11th house. But also, I have to tell you, because the Venus is so close to the Sun, there can be ego related problems with the spouse, right? Between Johnny Depp and his spouse. There can be arguments which are related to ego, whether I'm better or you're better, and that kind of arguments. That's the Sun. The Sun can do that when it comes close to the Venus in a man's chart, or when the Sun is in the seventh house or a ruler of the seventh house. Somehow if the Sun is in the equation, it can bring those kind of problems with the spouse, unfortunately. So I'm pretty sure he's had those kind of problems in his relationships and with his spouse and such. So that's one important thing. Another thing I also want to mention here is that the fact that the Mars, Uranus, and Pluto all comes into his second house, his money can be sudden. It can be unexpected. Plus, it can have ups and downs because Uranus is very unpredictable. So, and it is true, he has made millions of dollars, but he was a bankrupt at some point. He lost a lot of money too. So, there's another big swing. And before he made his millions, before he met Nicolas Cage and came into movies, he pretty much had nothing. He was struggling. He was a struggling musician. So that's another big dip. So there are these swings with Uranus in the second house. Money is not always the same all the time. There's these big ups and downs and highs and lows and always, okay? So that's very important to remember. Now, what is also another thing that I wanted to mention is Saturn in the seventh house. Okay, Saturn in the seventh yes, it can bring long relationships. I think with his first wife, Vanessa, he was with her for 16 or 17 years, I believe. So Saturn can bring length in relationships, right? Not always happy, but definitely long relationships. But also, Saturn is karmic. So, when it comes in the seventh house, your relationship can have a certain element of karma associated with it. It may not be easy because, whenever karma comes into the picture, there is stuff that we need to work through and we need to resolve. So, now all of this is coming through a relationship partner. So, I think that's another big reason why he's going through this lawsuit right now. And I'm going to talk about other reasons why he's going through this, but that's definitely one of the big reasons. So, he'll always have some kind of karmic connection with his spouse, past life connection, a feeling of having known the person before, a feeling of familiarity when he meets them. Some of those whirlwind romances, it's just happens, you meet somebody and you fall in love, and that all that is, it happens with Saturn in the seventh house, okay, because it's very karmic. And once you're married, the Saturn can tend to cause karmic problems in the relationship. So, the faster you learn from those problems, the better, right? Then you can get along and enjoy your relationship, but Saturn can bring some problems. It can also bring a spouse who can be very Saturnian in the sense that, he could look for somebody who wants to or who is able to take care of him because Saturn is, mature, right? Very responsible. So he could look for people with those qualities, which makes sense because the early childhood issues that you see in this chart, the problems with not feeling loved or nurtured, the problems with the father, with all of that, I'm sure he'll look for somebody who's very responsible and mature and who can help him and take care of him, that kind of stuff, because that's psychological, right? Remember, astrology is nothing but psychology. So all of these things are kind of, it's all inside us. It's impacting the way we think and act. So that Saturn can bring that karmic quality, and it can also bring a responsible, mature kind of individual, or at least it tells me that Johnny's looking for somebody like that. Okay. Now coming to the Jupiter in the ninth house. Again, ninth house, search for truth, search for justice, wanting to do the right thing. Okay, people with ninth house planets are always trying to find their own inner truth, right? Who am I? Why am I here? It's the house of philosophy. And it also tells me with Jupiter in the ninth house that sometimes, the individual can have this overinflated sense of the right and wrong, like justice, the scales, it's black or white, it's right or wrong, there's no gray area, right? So they can be very fanatical about their beliefs and their thoughts. So that's another thing with the Jupiter in the ninth house in Johnny Depp's chart. But ninth house is also the house of luck and fortune, so this is a pretty good placement for him because the Jupiter, of course, it's in the sign of Pisces. It's very strong. It's in Swakshetra, and it's in the ninth house of luck and fortune. So that makes him very fortunate in life. So it's just, if you think about it, he did not have an in into Hollywood. He was not born to Hollywood parents, right? But he got in through a friend that he knew, Nicolas Cage, and life just took him in that direction. That's the nature of Jupiter in the ninth house. Okay. Jupiter in the first house can also do that. But remember, from the ninth house, Jupiter is aspecting the first house too. That is the nature of it. It's this feeling of luck and fortune. If things just come to you and you have this kind of a divine intervention when you need it the most. Okay, so that's very important when Jupiter is in the fifth, ninth, or the first house, and it can bring that the luck and fortune to you. Now, let's look at why he is going through what he is going through right now. The thing is, he is in a Jupiter dasha with Venus antardasha. This is very important point. Why? Because Jupiter, whenever you're in a certain dasha, the transit of that planet becomes the most prominent in your chart. Okay, so Jupiter dasha means he has triggered his ninth house. What does that mean? Ninth house is everything that I told you, but it is also the house of law because it has to do with searching for truth. It is the house of law and legal matters. So the fact that he's in Jupiter Dasha, I'm not surprised that he is in a court case or a lawsuit right now. And the Antardasha is Venus, which means there's something relationship related. So the court case is something to do with his relationship. So he is in a lawsuit with his ex-wife. So Jupiter, Venus. Okay, so the Dasha tells us a lot right off the bat. Another thing is he had a Saturn return. Okay, 2019, Saturn entered his seventh house where his natal Saturn is sitting. And if you remember, 2019 is when all the issues happened in this relationship, right? That's when the court case, the lawsuit, and all of that started. Because what happens when Saturn comes back to where it was at the time of birth? The Saturn return is a turning point in a person's life. It brings karmic lessons. It's a culmination of a 30-year cycle which brings karmic lessons. In which area? Seventh house. That's what Saturn is sitting in. So it's in the area of relationships. He's having a court case or a lawsuit, something to do with relationships. Saturn return. Now, the Saturn return is what has really triggered things, and what is very interesting is that when this whole lawsuit was going on, Saturn in the sky, transiting Saturn, was pretty much stationed on his natal Saturn at 29 degrees of Capricorn. This is important. Whenever a planet stations at a point, it is becomes the most powerful thing in the chart, right? So it's basically trying to tell him that there is something he needs to learn here. There's something he needs to go through, and this is a karmic lesson. Some culmination of events is happening here. Okay, and that's one thing. Also, I want to mention, when you think about that second house, okay, second house having Uranus, Mars, and Pluto. Look from the moon. The second house has Saturn. If you look from the ascendant or look from the moon, the second house has malefic planets. The second house in medical astrology is the food that you put in your mouth. It's whatever you put in your mouth or whatever comes out of your mouth. The fact that he has malefics in his second house in both the ascendant chart and the moon chart tells us that he probably has problems with whatever he's consuming. And as we know, he's had addiction problems. Another thing, because the second house rules the mouth, it is also what comes out of your mouth. It's the words you speak, it's how you talk to others. And because he has malefics there, that means he's probably very harsh when he talks, very direct. Mars in the second house can make a person very direct. So he was probably verbally abusive. There was probably a lot of direct talking going on. There was probably a lot of anger in his speech, because Mars is anger and frustration. So all of that is karmic for this chart. It's karmic lessons. So when the Saturn return happened, it's giving him the outcome of all of these actions he's done in the past, right? What the other planets have kind of created in the chart, the addiction problems, the childhood problems, the problems with the father, the problems in relationships, and also on the good side, his friends coming forward to speak for him and to help him, the problems with his speech, right? So that's what Saturn return does. Every 30 years it comes around it, and it says, okay, let's take a list of everything, and see if we can resolve all of this now, right? And those are the karmic lessons. That's why he's going through a lawsuit, because if you think about this lawsuit, everything is being talked about in the public. He's having to face the truth, he's having to face the facts, and that's a Saturn return, right? It doesn't let you just do things and get away with it. Saturn will make you face what you have done, the good and bad, and get the result of that. That's the reason why this lawsuit is going on. So that's one thing. Now let's also look at what is coming up. Okay. Jupiter right now is in his ninth house, transiting Jupiter. He's going to have a Jupiter return here very soon. Ninth house is the house of legal representation, it's the house of truth. Now, because this is happening, I think ultimately this case will end up in his favor. Okay, but it will take some time. This will not happen till early 2023. Before that, he still has the Saturn return to go through. There are a few more hits. Saturn's gonna hit his natal Saturn a couple more times. And each of those times through the summer and early fall of 2022, the Saturn return is going to hit his natal Saturn, which tells me that there is going to be more of facing the music, right? He has to talk about, he has to feel, he has to hear the consequences of whatever has been done in the past, the good and the bad, right? It's not always bad. There can be good too, right? That's why I think his friends are coming forward to speak for him, because he has a great 11th house. Okay. And that's why I think he has great legal representation, because of his ninth house Jupiter. Okay, so it's not always bad. There are good things too. But that Saturn return has two more hits to his natal Saturn. And that's when I think more things are going to come out, more truths are going to come out. And he is going to, it's going to look like it's a tug of war between him and Amber Heard. Okay, because both of them are coming out and talking about every single detail of that relationship. Okay. But I think ultimately, early next year, 2023, when his Jupiter return is complete, this is all going to come in his favor. Another reason why I feel like he is going to make a major comeback is because in April of 2023, Jupiter will enter his 10th house of career. When that happens, he's going to have huge job offers, huge roles, or something in the movie industry that, he's going to make this major comeback. Okay, it's not over yet with Johnny Depp. Now, after that, around April or May of 2024, Jupiter's going to enter his 11th house of great gains and money. So the coming couple of years are going to be pretty good for him. Okay. Although I have to say, around January of 2023, Saturn will also be entering his eighth house, and eighth house is the house of addiction. So I hope that doesn't come back to plague him, although that's what it looks like. Okay. Saturn in the eighth house can cause problems with addiction, and it can bring back some of those lessons because eighth house is very transformative. So I hope he doesn't go through more of those issues or problems because it looks like he's out of it, but that Saturn could come back and test things sometimes. Okay. So that's a little bit concerning right there. But the fact that Jupiter is right now in his ninth house, legal success by early next year, 10th house, all through 2023, career comeback, major comeback. And 2024, it's in the 11th house. Jupiter will be in the 11th house, bringing great gains. I think this might all come back in his favor. But because all this happened during a difficult Saturn return, this will be something that he can never forget, right? Because he will always remember what happened in this relationship, what he did wrong, what he could have done right, and also what he did right, right? I mean, nobody is 100% wrong. I think it takes two hands to clap. So I think there was issues on both sides, right? Amber Heard and Johnny Depp. But looking at his chart, we can see that he definitely has some things to work through. The Saturn return is trying to reiterate that to him, telling him, hey, pay attention to this so that I can then teach you all these lessons and I can leave you alone for the next 30 years and come back. Okay. So that's what Saturn does. It brings back all the lessons every 30 years. Remember when I told you the mythology of Saturn? Remember, Saturn, he's called the god of karma. Okay. He's the son of, his father was the sun god, and his brother is Yama, the god of death. And they always say that Yama, the god of death, gives you the outcome of everything you did in your life after death. That's when you have to kind of give all those explanations to Yama. But Saturn gives you the outcome of everything you did in your life before your death. And I believe that happens every 30 years around the Saturn return. It's like taking a stock of everything that's happened so far and cleaning up that karma. That's what he's going through. So I think this is very interesting. Great chart. There's so many more things that I can see in this chart right here, but just from a standpoint of the case and everything that's going on, this is very interesting. I think sometimes what happens is when we have a lot of karma that we have to work through, those Saturn returns can be a little more tough than other people's, right? So that's what he's experiencing. But he's had a very difficult life, and he's become very famous and popular in this lifetime. And he's had his ups and downs, and I think he's going to make a comeback next year. So that's my assessment of this chart. Let me know what you think about it in the comments, or shoot me an email and let me know. Don't forget to subscribe to my channel, and I'll see you back here next time.